On January 14th, the United States Mint did something it's never done in 40 years. It stopped selling silver coins. All of them. No warning, no timeline for when they're coming back. Just a short notice on their website that reads like a surrender. Due to rapidly rising metal costs, silver numismatic products have been temporarily removed from sale as we evaluate pricing. Let that sink in for a second. The government agency responsible for producing America's official silver coins just told you they can't figure out how to price silver anymore. They're not raising prices. They're not limiting quantities. They've shut down completely. And if you think that sounds like panic, you're absolutely right. Because what they're not telling you is far more important than what they are. The US Mint just admitted something massive. They admitted they've lost control. Look, I know how this sounds. Another silver story. Another prediction. Another reason to pay attention. But this isn't speculation anymore. This is the official acknowledgement that the paper silver market and the physical silver market have completely divorced from each other. And when a government mint waves the white flag, that tells you everything you need to know about what's coming next. Here's what's really happening. And I'm going to show you the proof from 6 different angles, because when you see this from every direction, there's no other conclusion to reach. Let's start with what triggered the mint's surrender. Silver hit over $93 an ounce on January 15th. That's not a typo. $93. Just 1 year ago, silver was trading at $29. That's a 180% increase in 12 months. Gold went up 65% in the same period, which is huge. But silver? Silver didn't just rally, it detonated, and the US Mint couldn't keep up. They delayed the release of the 2026 Proof Silver Eagle until February 26th. They stopped taking orders for collector coins entirely. This isn't a supply chain hiccup. This is an institution that produces hundreds of millions of coins per year, telling you they physically cannot obtain enough silver to fulfill demand at any price they're willing to charge. Think about that. They have the full backing of the United States government. They have relationships with every major refiner. They have priority access to domestic silver production, and they still can't get enough metal. Now, you might be thinking this is just a government efficiency problem, that maybe they're being cautious or bureaucratic, but then you look at what's happening everywhere else, and you realize this isn't isolated. This is system-wide. 3 days before the mint suspended sales, Costco started rationing silver, 1 10-ounce bar per customer. That's it. You used to be able to buy 5 units per membership, now 1 bar. When Costco, one of the largest retailers on the planet, starts treating silver like it's toilet paper during a pandemic, that should tell you something fundamental has changed in the availability of physical metal. And Costco's not alone. Check any major bullion dealer right now. You'll see delays. You'll see premiums that are double what they were 6 months ago. You'll see out-of-stock notices on products that used to ship same day. The retail market is drying up in real time. But retail shortages are just the surface. Let me show you what's happening in the actual trading vaults where the big institutions play. This is where things get really interesting. The COMEX silver vaults in New York are the backbone of the paper silver market. These are the warehouses that supposedly back up all those silver futures contracts and ETF shares. And right now, they're being drained at a pace nobody's ever seen before. Here's the key number you need to understand. Registered silver. That's the metal sitting in COMEX vaults that's actually available for delivery if someone demands physical. As of January 9th, registered COMEX silver is down 70% from where it was in 2020. 70%. That's not a normal decline. That's a structural evacuation, and it's accelerating. In the first 4 trading days of December alone, traders took delivery of 60% of all available registered silver. 60%. In 4 days. Then in January, over 8 million ounces got delivered against the January contract. Usually, most traders just roll their positions forward and settle in cash. But not anymore. Now they're standing for delivery. They're demanding the actual bars. You know what that means? It means the people who actually understand how this market works don't trust the paper anymore. They want the metal in their hands. And when you see contracts rolling backwards from March into January and February, that's not normal trading behavior. That's desperation. That's traders willing to pay a premium to get physical now rather than waiting 60 days. This is exactly what happened right before the nickel market exploded in 2022. You remember that. The London Metal Exchange had to shut down nickel trading completely when the price went absolutely vertical. Why? Because there wasn't enough physical metal to cover all the paper promises. The exchange literally canceled trades and shut down the market to prevent a complete meltdown. Sound familiar? Because that's the exact pattern we're watching in silver right now. Except silver is 100 times bigger than nickel. And the industrial demand for silver is growing, not shrinking, which brings me to the second proof point. Market pricing signals. These are the numbers that professionals watch to gauge physical tightness. And right now, every single indicator is screaming shortage. Let me explain. Silver lease rates, because this is where the real panic shows up. A lease rate is basically the cost to borrow physical silver. When banks or institutions need silver for delivery but don't have it, they have to lease it from someone who does. Under normal conditions, you might pay 1 or 2% annually to lease silver. It's cheap, it's easy, there's plenty of supply. But in October last year, silver lease rates spiked to 39%. 39%. That's not a market in equilibrium. That's a market where physical silver has become so scarce that people are willing to pay nearly 40% just to borrow it for a year. And right now, depending on the contract, lease rates are running anywhere from 50 to 200% annualized. Let me put that in perspective. If physical silver were abundant, if there were plenty of bars sitting in vaults ready to be leased, the rate would be near zero. But at 39%, at 50%, that's telling you there's a bidding war for every available ounce. That's shortage pricing. Then there's backwardation. This is when the spot price of silver trades higher than the futures price. Normally, futures trade at a premium to spot because you're paying for storage and time. But when spot is above futures, that's the market saying I need silver right now and I'll pay more for immediate delivery than I will for delivery 3 months from now. Silver has been in backwardation multiple times over the past year. That's extremely rare. And when it happens, it's a massive red flag that physical supply is stressed beyond normal limits. These aren't opinions. These aren't predictions. These are objective market signals that anyone can verify, and they all point the same direction. Now let me show you why this situation can't be fixed quickly. Because even if someone wanted to flood the market with new supply, they can't. The physical silver simply doesn't exist. This is the 5th consecutive year the world has consumed more silver than it produced. A 5th year in a row. The deficit for 2025 alone is projected at 117 million ounces. Over the past 4 years, the cumulative deficit is close to 700 million ounces. That's 10 months of total global mine production. Just gone. Consumed. Not coming back. And demand isn't slowing down, it's accelerating. Industrial applications accounted for over 700 million ounces in 2025. Solar panels alone consume 230 million ounces. Every electric vehicle uses silver. Every AI data center uses silver. Every 5G tower uses silver. These aren't luxury applications. These are infrastructure. And this demand is growing by double digits every year. You can't just substitute something else. Silver is the most conductive metal on Earth. For certain applications, there's no replacement. So when the solar industry grows, when EV production ramps up, when AI infrastructure expands, silver consumption has to increase. There's no way around it. Meanwhile, mine production is flat. We're not discovering major new silver deposits. We're not dramatically increasing output. The geology doesn't support it. Most silver comes as a byproduct of copper, lead, and zinc mining. So even if silver prices triple, you can't just spin up new silver mines overnight. It takes years, billions in capital, and we're already 4 years into a deficit. Do the math. If you consume more than you produce for 5 straight years, and demand keeps growing, and new supply takes a decade to bring online, what do you think happens to price? What do you think happens to availability? And then, right in the middle of this perfect storm, China decides to throw gasoline on the fire. On January 1st, China implemented new export controls on silver. They reclassified it as a strategic material, which puts it in the same category as rare earth elements and other resources they consider critical to national security. Only 44 companies are now licensed to export Chinese silver, and those licenses run through 2027. Why does this matter? Because China is one of the world's largest silver producers. When they restrict exports, that metal doesn't hit the global market. It stays inside China for their domestic industrial use, which means the rest of the world has to compete for an even smaller pool of available silver. This isn't temporary. This is a 2-year policy framework, and if you think China is going to reverse course and start flooding the market with silver again, you haven't been paying attention to how they operate. When they designate something as strategic, they mean it. They're hoarding silver for the same reason they've been hoarding copper, lithium, and rare earths, because they know what's coming. So now you've got 6 proof points, all hitting at the same time. The US Mint can't source silver. Retail dealers are rationing. COMEX vaults are draining. Lease rates are at crisis levels. The market's been in deficit for 5 straight years, and China just cut off a major source of global supply. Any one of these would be significant. All 6 together? That's not a squeeze. That's a structural breakdown. And here's the part that should terrify anyone holding paper silver. When the nickel market broke in 2022, the London Metal Exchange did something that should have been illegal. They canceled trades. They rewound the clock. They changed the rules mid-game to protect the shorts who couldn't deliver physical metal. People who were on the right side of the trade got wiped out because the exchange decided the integrity of the clearinghouse was more important than honoring contracts. You think COMEX won't do the same thing? You think they won't invoke force majeure clauses and settle in cash if they run out of deliverable silver? Because I'm telling you right now, when push comes to shove, the exchange will protect itself. Not you. This is why the distinction between paper silver and physical silver matters more now than it ever has. If you own shares in a silver ETF, you own a promise, a legal claim on silver that may or may not actually exist in a vault somewhere. If you own futures contracts, you own the right to demand delivery. But that right is only as good as the exchange's willingness to honor it. And we've already seen what happens when an exchange decides it won't honor delivery. They just change the rules. But if you own physical silver, if you've got coins or bars in your possession, nobody can cancel that. Nobody can settle you in cash. Nobody can rewrite the contract. You have the metal, and in a shortage, the metal is what matters. I'm not saying this to sell you anything. I'm saying this because the evidence is overwhelming. Every single indicator, from government mints to retail dealers to institutional vaults to market pricing to supply deficits, is pointing the same direction. Physical silver is becoming unavailable at current prices, and when availability breaks, price is the only mechanism left to ration supply. That's not speculation. That's basic economics. Let me be clear about what I think happens next. Not because I'm predicting it, but because this is what always happens when paper markets collide with physical reality. First, premiums are going to explode. You're already seeing this. Dealers are charging $10, $12, $15 over spot for physical silver. That premium is going to widen because the spot price is still being set in the paper market where contracts settle in cash, but the physical market is where actual metal trades hands. And those are 2 completely different prices now. Second, delivery delays are going to stretch from weeks to months. We're already seeing 4 to 6 week delays on some products. That's going to get worse because dealers can't deliver metal they don't have, and their suppliers can't deliver metal they don't have. This cascades up the chain until you hit the refiner level, and refiners can't produce silver that wasn't mined. Third, you're going to see more rationing, more purchase limits, more one-per-customer policies, because retailers would rather stay in business by limiting sales than sell out their entire inventory in one day to a handful of buyers. Fourth, and this is the big one, you're going to see the paper and physical markets completely decouple. The spot price might say $40, while you're paying $70 for an actual coin. That spread is the market's way of saying paper silver and physical silver are not the same thing anymore. And eventually, the COMEX is either going to have to settle contracts in cash, or they're going to have to let the price run until it reaches a level where people actually sell physical metal back into the market. I don't know what that number is. Nobody does. But it's a lot higher than $90 an ounce. Here's what you need to understand about this moment. The US Mint stopping sales isn't the beginning of this crisis. It's the middle. The crisis started years ago when industrial demand overtook mine supply. It accelerated when central banks started buying precious metals again. It intensified when China restricted exports. And now it's hitting the breaking point where even government institutions can't pretend everything's fine. The mint suspension is an admission. It's them telling you the physical market is broken. They just can't say it that way because it would cause panic. So instead they say rapidly rising metal costs and evaluating pricing. But what they mean is, we can't get silver at any price we're willing to charge, and we don't know when that's going to change. If you've been waiting for a clear signal that the silver market is in crisis, this is it. When the US Mint waves the white flag, that's your signal. Now, I'm not a financial advisor. I can't tell you what to do with your money, but I can tell you what I see happening. And what I see is a global shortage of physical silver playing out in real time, across retail, institutional, and now governmental channels simultaneously. The people who understand this are the ones demanding physical delivery from COMEX. They're the ones paying 39% lease rates to borrow metal. They're the ones buying whatever they can find, regardless of premium, because they know what paper silver is worth. When there's no silver backing it, zero. Your decision is simple. Do you want a legal claim on silver that might get settled in cash if the exchange decides they can't deliver? Or do you want actual metal that nobody can take away from you, or redefine or settle at a price you didn't agree to? That's the only question that matters now. Paper or physical? Promises or metal? Claims or coins? Because when the US Mint tells you they can't source silver anymore, they're really telling you the separation is already happening. Physical is going one direction, paper is going another, and only one of them has real value when the shortage hits. If this information is clicking for you, if you're seeing the same pattern I'm seeing, do me a favor. Subscribe to this channel. Hit the bell so you don't miss the next update, because this situation is moving fast. And drop a comment below. Tell me what you're seeing in your area. Are dealers sold out? Are premiums spiking? I want to know what's happening on the ground where you are. Because here's the thing. The US Mint's admission changes everything. This isn't a conspiracy anymore. This isn't a fringe theory. This is the official United States Mint telling you they've lost control of silver pricing and availability. And if they're admitting that publicly, imagine what they're saying behind closed doors. The window for buying physical silver at reasonable premiums is closing. Not in 6 months. Not next year. Right now, while Costco is rationing, while the mint is suspended, while COMEX registered inventory is evaporating, this is the moment, and everyone watching this needs to understand what it means. So let me ask you one final question, and I want you to really think about your answer. If the US Mint can't get silver, if Costco is rationing, if COMEX vaults are being drained, if China cut off exports, and if the world's been in a supply deficit for 5 straight years, where exactly do you think you're going to get silver 6 months from now? Because that's the question that matters. And the answer should terrify anyone who doesn't already have physical metal in their possession. This isn't fear-mongering. This is math. This is supply and demand. This is reality hitting the paper market with the force of a freight train. And when reality wins, which it always does, the people holding paper promises are going to learn a very expensive lesson about the difference between owning silver and owning a claim on silver. Don't be one of them.